In the last big election, 90 million people voted. That sounds like a lot. So you realize there are more than 200 million eligible voters. In other words, most people didn't vote. And that's terrible, I'm told. But I don't think it's terrible. I think it's good. Because I think a lot of you are stupid. Some of you, too. Or maybe not you. You're the audience that bothered to come to my show. So you're obviously right on top of things. But lots of Americans don't follow the news. I took these blown-up photos of Ron Paul, Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich, showed them to people outside the studio. I figured some wouldn't know who Ron Paul was, but surely everyone would know who Mitt and Newt were. Wrong. Do you know who this is?
I know his face, but I can't think of his name.
Tom Brokaw?
Looks like Will Ferrell.
You know who this is?
Newt Romney.
Who's this guy?
I don't know.
How about this? You know who this is?
The situation.
He's a character on a sleazy reality show. Yet more people knew him than knew important politicians.
Situation.
This is one reason I say those get out the vote drives are dumb. They hold them at rock concerts. I run my what do you know test there, and many of the young people had no clue about national affairs. It's fine that most of them don't vote. That's appropriate self-selection. Those of you who don't pay attention will be less likely to vote. Good! But I take heat for saying that. Saying some people shouldn't vote is just sacrilegious to people. But one economist who agrees with me is Bryan Caplan. He's author of a book called The Myth of the Rational Voter, Why Democracies Choose Bad Policies. So democracies choose bad policies because voters are not rational?
Exactly. There's a lot of bad policies that pass by popular demand.
But people want to do the right thing.
That's absolutely right, actually. People do want to do the right thing, but that doesn't mean that they are doing it. In order to do the right thing, you have to know something. And if you try to do the right thing without knowing what you're doing, you can easily mess things up.
And you say voters don't have a real incentive to get informed?
That's right. So you really need to ask yourself, what would happen if you just voted at random? The answer is the same thing that happens to you otherwise.
Nothing, right.
Nothing.
Because one vote
you're just
probably doesn't matter?
You're just one little vote out of millions of people. So if you make a terrible decision, the same thing happens to you that happens to everybody else. I often have an argument with a colleague of mine who says, the problem with your argument, Brian, is it means that we're just getting the government we deserve. And I say, well, Pete, the real story is that we're getting the government they deserve. And that's the problem.
And the people who really get informed and really are likely to vote and get other people to vote are the special interest groups.
That's often true, yes.
Because they have more at stake?
Right, yes. So special interest groups are paying close attention. They know what's going on, and people who are listening to them will do what they're told in a lot of cases, sure.
And the rest of us have lives. It's not our main interest to get somebody in office.
That's absolutely right. People have their own lives. People are doing other things, and it's it's very hard to know what's going on. Although here's the interesting thing: if all you want to do is vote intelligently, or at least not mess things up, there's just this: just being honest with yourself, admitting there's a bunch of things that I don't know about, and therefore I have no opinion on them.
By contrast, if you are dumb about your personal purchases, you are hurt.
That's absolutely right. So if you are walking by a used car dealership and you see their sign saying, the best cars in the world for the lowest prices, even if you don't know a thing about cars, you can still exert your common sense skepticism and say, yeah, right, that's what they all say. But when a politician comes along, people are much more likely to say, oh, he just looks so trustworthy, he's got a great smile, and therefore he wouldn't lie to me, would he?
And if you're dumb in buying the car, you clearly get stuck with a bad car. You get punished right away. The market punishes you.
Right, and you may look back and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that again. And here's the really striking thing, is it's not so much that voters are dumb as even smart people act dumb when they vote. I know an engineer who is very clever, knows could get me off a desert island, but his views on economics are ridiculous. It's not that he's read the textbook and found something wrong. He just knows what he likes and doesn't want to hear anything else.
And is my test here, it's fairly shallow, is this representative? I understand other surveys have found amazing things.
It's not so much when people don't know the answer as when they think they know answers that aren't true. For example, on the budget, a very common view is that foreign aid is actually the largest item in the budget. It's about 1% of the budget.
One survey found that what's the two biggest items in the budget? The winners were foreign aid and welfare.
That's right. Not Social Security, not Medicare, not defense, not interest on the
foreign aid
debts.
and welfare together are probably less than 1% of the budget.
Depends on how you define welfare. Probably more roughly 10 when you put them together. But still, not much
defense
compared to the
or
other
Social
stuff.
Security or Medicare are all 10 times bigger.
I mean, really, what it looks like people do is they think about how much they like people, and based upon whether or not they like you, they decide whether you're a drain on the budget. So the elderly, we like them, so they're not a problem. They don't cost much. Foreigners don't like them so much, so they're bleeding us dry.
Well, thank you, Brian Kapp.